What's up guys, this is Fedor with another YouTube episode on a Q&A. I posted on Twitter and a lot of people have responded to what questions they would ask me. I think I got over 100 questions from different channels and I want to jump into some of them. I picked out some of my favorites and let's get into it. One of the first ones I saw was from Daniel Coaching on Instagram, and he asked, how much fun is it to be a coach and teach upcoming poker players? I want to tell a little story on how I got into coaching in poker in general. So I think the first real coaching sessions I did was around 2014. But before that, I did kind of like, not really me coaching someone, but me working a lot with other players. So we were a lot on Skype calls and talking poker strategy all the time. And I was very active in poker training forums. So we were exchanging, we were posting about poker hands. So I had a lot of exposure to me giving advice to others and others giving me advice. And this was just a constant back and forth. So that was a very fundamental aspect of me becoming a better player. And in terms of me coaching, I've probably coached hundreds of players at this point. I've done a variety of different courses and webinars, but also have done a lot of one-on-one coaching. And I have staked people for a long time. And one thing I've realized is people make the same mistakes over and over again. So I repeated a lot of the same things. That was also one of the reasons why we founded Pokercode, because we believe that a lot of the things people do wrong is recurring. So we want to share that and we want to build this community where then these people can share what they have learned, and it just gets this really nice dynamic. I really enjoy coaching myself when I feel that the person I talk to is really curious, highly engaged, when there's just this nice energy of I can help that person getting better and going forward, and that is super awesome. So these were the coaching sessions I enjoyed the most. And I personally actually really love helping people at Pokercode because I feel there's such a nice positive vibe and people help each other a lot. So I love coaching. I still do it regularly and I have been doing it for almost 8 years now. So that answers the question. Okay, second question. It's from YANISLAVLN on Instagram, and he asked, what was your first poker bankroll when you started? The first number that comes to mind is 0. I think I started with basically 0. I mean, the number must be somewhere between 0 and a couple €100. So what I started out was I started playing free rolls on PokerStars. I did get a $50, like there were these bonuses from, I think back then it was Poker Strategy. So when I created my account, I got a $50 bonus. I lost those. I think I cashed in PaySafe cards a couple times for maybe a couple €100. I guess that I could call my poker starting bankroll. So I invested some money in the beginning. I was losing a little bit. Maybe total 1,000, 1,500, maybe €2,000 over the stretch of 2 years. Always like a little bit here, a little bit there. That was the beginning. So I was probably a winning player on low stakes, a losing player on mid stakes. And that kind of like made me dabble because I always tried to move up and get better and get to the next stakes. And then 1.5, 2 years in, I got into a staking deal, which put a lot of pressure on me, but also helped me get better. And then I think in that room, I progressed to beat mid stakes and then be good enough to beat mid stakes consistently. And that was the path that propelled me forward. So I actually used money that my father gave me for doing my driver's license. So up until today, I still do not have a driver's license. That was like the only money I had basically. It was like €1,000, I think, that I used for living and for playing poker. So that was my starting bankroll, I would say. And yeah, it turned out, after a couple of years, it turned into a profit. So it didn't work out right away, but I put a lot of time into it and then it turned out for the better. The third question from Fisherman FV. Would you ever invest as much time in another poker variant as you did in No Limit Hold'em? The answer is no. This one is a really short answer because I think I invested maybe 15 to 20,000 hours in Hold'em at this point, and I cannot imagine ever spending that much time on poker in general, but also not in another variant. I think if it would be, then probably on PLO. I enjoy PLO, there are some good games running, but it's always all kind of environmental as well. Like if there's crazy PLO games running and a great opportunity for a long period of time, I can definitely see myself getting excited about learning the game, but I don't really see that happening. So dabbling a couple 100 hours in different variants, yes. Ever investing as much time as I did in Hold'em, which was just an insane amount of time, certainly not. Another question from Hannes. Shout out to Hannes of Team Pokercode. Since achieving financial freedom, did you change your approach to reach happiness? I mean, that's a pretty broad question, or a big question. I would say one thing that changed a lot was not necessarily that my goals changed or my approach changed. The space I have in my mind changed. And that was actually really important, really fundamental. Is I think the big shift within, for me, it was going from having 2,000 euros in my bank account to having 20,000 euros in my bank account, was this idea that I didn't have to worry. So a lot of my mental energy was freed up. I didn't have to worry about paying rent, or at least I didn't, what I'm eating or when I fly where. And this was really, really nice because it didn't made me go crazy, but it kind of lifted this constant like, oh, to have enough money to pay this, can I do that? Like, I have to save there to then do that. It feels like this was 20-30% of my energy. So this being maybe 2% kind of freed up a lot of space for me to think about other things. Like, what can I learn? What am I excited about? How can I improve? And that really, really helped me. So a big focus that has shifted is more focus on relationships and deepening those relationships. So if I think about now what's different to back then, it's certainly deeper relationships, the relationship to my girlfriend, to my close friends, spending more time with myself as well on how I am, who I am, and how I'm feeling, and developing that. And that's definitely, I would say, the biggest shift over the years. This is a big topic. Can I talk openly about cheating going on currently, especially at high stakes? From MickGal70 on Instagram. Shout out to Mick. It's a huge topic. I mean, cheating in poker generally is a pretty big topic because it's played for a lot of money, and I think it's very clear that there is stuff going on, and it's also clear that there needs to be done something. And I think a lot of people share that sentiment that cheating isn't great for online poker, and that I think it's becoming more and more visible, and more people are interested in universally doing something against it. The approach I think that we should take is just make the punishment harder. In chess, they showed a really great process or approach to that is, they become technically really good at catching cheaters, which I think is the first aspect. And the second aspect is that then when you cheat, you get punished very hard. So I think the punishment for cheating in any type of game is, for online accounts, they just get banned forever, and for a long time. And for professional players is you get banned from basically every tournament for, I think, at least a couple years. I think in poker, cheating will change a lot when punishment is harder and people, like when tracking gets better. And these are things that I'm actively advocating for. I think people, like there are some people who have been cheating, where people just don't talk about enough. So I think talking about it, making it more present, bringing it to light, I think that's a big step. So sites getting better at actually catching cheaters. I know GG is doing a lot in that regard already. So Stars has also always been doing things in that regard. Just sites getting better at tracking cheaters. I think that's a big point. And then second, I think that would be a big shift, is just cheaters being punished more by being banned from live events, like being banned from WSOP, being banned from EPTs, being banned from any major live event. And I think that will change the game significantly. That's my hope towards the future. I think in general, it's not that bad that you can't play. So it's not like, oh, everyone's cheating. No, but there is enough people that are trying, and I think we need to improve that barrier of how hard it is. The craziest hand in my life by Egyptian God Zeus. Nice name, on Instagram. I try to think about what the craziest hand in my life was. I actually think in terms of emotions and pressure, it might have been, like there's a couple ones that come to mind, and I'll start with one, which was, I think, the 7-8 of spades against Upeshka de Silva in the WSOP main. Because in real life, so it was the televised table, the TV table, and the hand went for like 17 minutes or something. It was a long hand. It was pre-flop, it took some time. On a flop, it took some time. On a turn, it took some time. And then on the river, he tanked for, I think, 11 minutes. Daniel Negreanu called the clock on the guy. It was a pretty absurd situation because at some point, it just got so absurd after 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. It was just, okay, how long is this guy just gonna sit there and do nothing? It must have been 10, 11, 12 minutes when he made a decision. So really, really absurd long time. And I was bluffing. with bottom pair. So I was really hoping for him to fold, but the odds he got were also really great. So yeah, this was a massive hand for a really big pot in the main. And I think what was crazy about the hand was the long time I had to sit there. And yeah, that was definitely one of the most memorable ones. And then sometimes it's when I win the tournament and close a tournament with a hand. So I think 7-8 of clubs, or 7-8 of clubs against Dan Smith, I think, was also one that came to mind, where I turned a straight in the 100K and it's just boom, it's over. I win the tournament, 5 million, like bracelet. This was also really insane because there's so much relief, so much endorphins, like leaving the body. That was a really, really amazing moment. So I would say these were two hands that just came to mind that were really, really amazing. Oh, this is a great question by Mark Zijan. Thoughts on going all in, risking bankruptcy to be a poker pro? I think the first thing I want to say regarding this, it's always on an individual level. There's not a universal answer. It's like, do it or don't do it. And everyone who says that is talking bullshit. There's no universal solution to becoming a poker pro or not becoming a poker pro. It's depending on so many factors, and all these factors are different in each individual situation. It depends on how much you actually love doing it, what the actual risk is for you, what other options you have, how old you are, like what you plan in the future. There's so many things that, depending on these factors, I would suggest it or not suggest it. I think in general, I would say if you're young, if you really are very excited about poker, and I would say in that regard, it's that you have spent a decent amount, like hundreds of hours on it already, and think that you want to spend another couple thousands of hours on it, then I think that's a reasonable idea. Like if you think that you want to do it full time, you can imagine doing it full time for at least a year or 2 or 3 years, then that's something where I'd say, okay, this needs to be the threshold before I would even consider it. I would say the baseline thinking is you don't really have many obligations that you need to consider. You really, really care about poker and improving at poker, and you are willing to put in the time, and with time I mean really full time, like doing it all out, like playing, studying, and investing the time, and you're willing to do that for at least a year, then I would say that's a reasonable setup to say, okay, go all in for poker. And the risk is not that high. Like that's something it's really oftentimes, let's say you're whatever, 23, and you're like, you're in the midst of your bachelor's degree and you're like, no, I don't like this. The risk is super low. It's, your financial risk is maybe a couple €1,000. So it's not, you maybe pay rent, you eat food, like you maybe need a little bit of a poker bankroll. Like that's never going to be a problem in whatever you do after, right? If you now go like I was in the same spot. If you go minus 3K and you borrow it from your parents, or like you play poker for 1 year, you don't need more than 5K euros. Whatever you do afterwards, you can make back. If you ever choose to do something else, there will be an outcome where you will make that amount of money with something in the next few years. And the possibility to make that money is very high. I would say the key driver should be what obligations you have and how much you are into poker. Because I would not suggest to do it if you're not really, really into poker. I would say you need to be really, really, really into poker. That's the only path when it makes sense. Because if you don't love it, you're not going to be great at it. You're not going to reach that limit where you can make money with it, and then you're not going to be very sustainably happy with it and have fun with it. That's my suggestion around going all in and going pro. Now, another question, are there any live tournaments you look forward to attending? From Milko, shout out to Milko. Yes, I'm actually really excited about Triton. Triton has planned some really nice high stakes poker series, and they were planning to do something in Asia, and I was really excited to go there. This is something I was very much looking forward to, high stakes poker, 50K, 25K, 100K, 300K. In some amazing venues. This I'm really excited for. I'm really excited for Aussie Millions. I'd love to go back to Melbourne. I am excited to play in the Aria again if there's a good high roller series there. These are also always nice to play. So there are a couple of series I'm looking forward to. I'd also like to play another EPT. It's kind of like old school feelings. I always had great feelings about the EPT. Yeah, that's stuff I'm looking forward to, and let's see which series I can make. I had one here from ISMAELBOJANG. Shout out to Ismael, crusher of the game. He asked, do you live day by day or you have a daily, weekly routine? If so, what does it consist of? I would say it's somewhere in the middle. I do have somewhat of a daily routine, but also not really a daily routine. I work on Pokercode on a daily basis, and there I normally start between 9 and 10 and work on and off until like 6, 7, 8 p.m. And it's kind of more a modular schedule. So if I meet someone, then I move that in there. I have my weekly meetings, which are more fixed schedule, but everything around that is kind of based on, am I traveling? Is my girlfriend here or not? Do I feel like it's also very much about my mental state, my mental energy. If I really feel like, oh, I need to work on this, I want to work on this, then I sometimes work much more on it. I really enjoy working on off times as well. So on the weekend, I love working on the company because I feel there's not so much new information coming in and I can really focus on what's there. That's one part. So Pokercode is a pretty big block. And then it's kind of shifting blocks with my girlfriend. She lives in Berlin, so we try to see each other as much as we can. So when we see each other, I work a bit less. And when we don't see each other, I work more. So that's kind of shifting. And then traveling. So when I travel, I also work a bit less. And then I have some other projects I'm working on, which is more also kind of fixed schedules where a couple hours a week I support them, advise them, some investments that I take care of. So it's like a good mix of different things. And it's always a bit changing depending on my environment. So shout out to Ismael. I hope you're well, man. Super good poker player. Shout out to Burko, someone super active in the Pudgy Penguins community. And he asked, how many tables is too many when multi-tabling online? And I think that is a question that a lot of people ask, and I want to go a bit deeper into multi-tabling online, tables, table counts, and focus. I think I can share a really quick tip on this because I have gone through lots of stages. I started out playing 20, 24, 28 tables of sit and goes, so 180-man sit and goes, 45-man sit and goes, and I was just like clicking buttons like that. That was stimulating to some degree, but also not very great for my development as a player. But there is something about doing this for certain amounts of time to just see where your limit is and see how strong your subconscious level of play is. So there's something about this. And then the older I got, the more mature I got as a player, the more I reduced my table count. So one thing that I would highly suggest is figure out your personal limit. There is a certain, so I kind of think of two ways. One where I feel like my mental capacity is reached, and one where I feel like, I call it like the timeout zone. Is there's a certain table count where I start timing out on tables because I'm like a certain amount above my mental capacity. And then I would say generally it's 25% of that is where I'm kind of at my mental capacity, where I feel like I can make great decisions on a regular basis without being too overburdened. So for me, I would say where I'm timing out is somewhere between 12 and 15 tables. And so my sweet spot is somewhere 8 to 9 tables. That's where I feel like I can make great decisions on an ongoing basis with enough time and I have enough focus to put it on specific situations. So when you're maybe not so familiar with super hardcore mass tabling, play somewhere between 4, 5, 6 tables. I think that's a good sweet spot. And then when you're maybe more familiar with mass tabling, then you can maybe up that to 9 to 12 tables. But I would not suggest to go above 15 tables unless you know exactly what you're doing. So rather keep the table count lower. And if you just play for fun, kind of find your individualized spot where you feel like, oh, 2 tables is exactly the type of action I'm looking for, or maybe 6 tables is that spot. Kind of just try it out, find your sweet spot. Yeah, I think it's all individual. I personally kind of like to be in this mode where I'm not timing out, so it's not too much, but I'm also challenged and constantly like on the hook. So for me, that's about 9 tabling. The last question that ties in really nicely with some content I want to create from Hodeldonk. What's up? Shout out to Weak Crow, who posted the question, what's your best advice to handle downswings and just stay at your A game when things are going south? And I want to do a piece on this, expanding on this much more, because last year, 2021, I had financially one of my worst years, or my worst poker year. And I want to go more into detail around that and how that feels and how I deal with it. And generally, I would say keeping a positive attitude and focusing on the process are probably the most important things around that. Because in the end, it's all about what you make of it. It's all about your perception. If you want to feel great, you will feel great. If you want to feel bad and feel bad about yourself, then that's what you will feel. And it's very difficult because it constantly will come up. You will constantly guilt trip yourself and like feel bad about yourself and victimize yourself, and getting out of that and having these constant loops of like, no, looping yourself back into a positive mindset is super important. So as a really super short tip, what I would suggest is the key thing in my life that has helped is having a variety of different things that make me happy. When there's just poker and poker's running bad, then everything is bad. But when there are different things, my relationship makes me happy, like doing sports makes me happy, traveling makes me happy, meeting my friends makes me happy, and poker and that challenge makes me happy. And then when it doesn't go well there, then there's other things that go well and make me happy. And so I think having this fortitude of different things and building up these things, I think is very important. And then the other aspect is drawing the energy from the right things. Like, don't draw your energy from your results. It will just make it a terrible path. Like, draw your energy from your personal result. Like, your growth is, hey, I got better. Like, I'm becoming a better player. This is fun, this is exciting, and constantly circle back onto that whenever it's like, it's a result, yes, but what other results are there? And then building these results as well. It's like focusing on that growth and that fun aspect of it, because if you're not growing and if it's not fun, then maybe poker isn't for you. If you just do it to make money, it will be a miserable path to some degree. I highly, highly recommend to focus on the fun aspect, because then you can enjoy it most of the time. And I think that should be the goal within poker. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this Q&A session. If you have more questions, shoot them over on Twitter or Instagram. I'll try to get back to as many good questions as possible. And as always, it would be really amazing if you click on the subscribe button, because it gives us motivation to create more content, and gives me motivation to create more content and put out more of these pieces. It just shows that type of support. So lots of appreciation for you guys. I hope this content was valuable for you. Have a safe week. Bye-bye.